All right. Well, welcome to another episode in the Run Breiter Podcast. This is episode number 28, and I am so excited to say we have another awesome guest. We have on Carolyn, Carolyn is someone that, I stumbled upon her TikTok page. I enjoyed a lot of her content about running. And really, that's what I know about you, Carolyn, that you're a really passionate runner. I know you've done a lot of races and training for some different ones in the future, I'm sure. So this episode is really going to be a great opportunity to learn about your running journey, as well as, share any value that you'd like with the community here. So I'm going to hand it off to you. I first want to hear about a quick introduction, anything you want to talk about. Feel free to give like a background of like where you're from, and just different facts about you that you want to share, and we'll see how things go here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Of course.
So my name is Carolyn Macduff. I am a 27-year-old speech therapist from Dallas, Texas.
Nice.
I've been in Dallas my entire life, which I feel like not many people can say about like their hometown. I went to grad school in East Texas for 2 years, realized I didn't like it and moved back. So, let's see, I've been a runner since 2006. I'd been doing like 5Ks here and there, but signed up for my first half marathon. It was the Dallas half, and I've kind of been running ever since.
Amazing. I love that. And, it's very cool that you're from Dallas. I think you're our first guest that we've had on that's from Dallas. So I'm definitely going to be asking you some questions about the running scene there, because I think it's really interesting to learn about different places and how the running is there. So I think that's actually a good question we can start with. Like, tell me about how, the running community of Dallas, what that's like for you.
Okay, so I didn't realize how big the running community was until I started getting plugged in. I feel like every city and suburb of Dallas has a running group, and oftentimes we'll kind of mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's an event next week, it's called Loop the Lake, and all of the running community comes together, and it's a 10-mile loop around this lake. It's called White Rock Lake. And it's really cool to just get to know people from, I don't know, a running group an hour from you. And I mean, it's really important to get connected to the running community. I've found out about races. I've gotten discount codes. I found running buddies, and I actually found my coach through the running community.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think being in a place where there's a lot of people who obviously you enjoy running with, that's such a great way to stay motivated with running. I mean, for me, I sometimes run by myself, but when I go, and I'm in New York City, so when I go and run with a running group, and have some coaching, I'm sure you could agree, you really get, some extra energy, some extra adrenaline in there, right?
Completely agree with you, especially when it comes to marathon training. I've gotten, into solo running. I've really enjoyed it. I find that I have way less stoppage time if I run by myself. But it is nice to mix in people, especially on those really long runs. I literally tell people, just talk to me about anything. Like, you have 3 hours. Tell me about your favorite color. Tell me about just any facts to keep us going. So.
Definitely. And it's funny you say like anything, because I'm with you. Sometimes like I'm normally someone who talks a lot, especially, I have this podcast, I make a lot of content, but when I'm on a long run, it's so interesting to hear like other people talk and just like learn about other people's lives. So I'm definitely with you there. As far as the like running scenery though, the spots that you run most commonly in Dallas, is it a lot of trails? Is it like city like running? Do you mind walking me through that? Because I've never even been to Dallas.
Yes. So we don't really have much trails. Our trails are like little sections of gravel that are off of the road. So our trail community really is about an hour away in Tyler, Texas.
Okay.
So definitely a lot of road running.
Okay.
There is like a 7-mile trail. It's called the Katy Trail, and I run on that. And it can actually connect you to that 10-mile White Rock Lake I mentioned. So you can get, 20 plus miles. And then people get really creative. Like they'll use the Dallas Marathon route. They'll explore neighborhoods. And just it's weird. Like all of our trails are somehow connected throughout the Metroplex. So, but a lot of road running happens in Dallas.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for, giving me some perspective of the running scene. I'm sure I'll make my way into Dallas eventually, and maybe you'll show me some of the good running spots that you know of.
I would love to.
Awesome. Well, now I want to talk about a little bit more of like your personal running journey. Was the half marathon the first race that you kind of started training for once you started in 2016, or?
Yes. Okay. So my running journey started. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder in 2016. I worked for the University of North Texas Housing Department, and they encouraged us to explore all of the different parks and resources that our students could go to. So they said, go to the rec center and work out. Did that. Go to the career center and explore careers. Did that. And then they said, go to a therapy session. And I went and I took an anxiety, like their anxiety rating scale, and I scored a 99 out of 100.
Wow.
And was like, oh, crud. So the lady was like, what can you do to kind of alleviate that anxiety? And I was like, well, I guess I'll run. And there was a hall director that worked just down the street. And he was like, you know what? I'll run. So we started running together, and he was like, well, we could do this half marathon together. And that's where it kind of all started.
Wow. I'm curious. And first of all, thank you so much for sharing that story. I didn't know that part about you, but something that I preach so much is the mental benefits that come with running, and stories like this, I think really are a proof of value on that. Have you like measured your anxiety ever since you started getting into running, or like over the last couple of years, and have you noticed a positive difference there, or?
Yes. And this is still pretty new and I'm still kind of accepting it. But when I was training for CIM this past year, I
Mhm.
noticed that I wasn't really motivated, didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, couldn't meet friends, went to a psychiatrist and was diagnosed with depression. So it kind of made sense. And, I'm on medication. And ever since then, like I've been so motivated. I've shown up for people. I loved running again. But there's, kind of been highs and lows along that mental health journey.
Mhm.
So I'm a big advocate for, if you feel unmotivated, if you feel something is not mentally right, go get it checked out. Like there is nothing wrong with admitting that you need something other than just yourself and your mind.
Yeah, no, I can definitely appreciate that. And for me,
Yeah.
I mean, I've dealt with some of that. I mean, I'm sure what you dealt with, it sounds a little bit more severe than what I've gone through. And, I wish you best of luck on that mental health journey. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think finding resources really for anything, and like trying different things, whether it's running, seeking help, having a healthy diet, being social with the right people. I think those are all really important things to consider with the mental health side of things. Have there been any like, obviously, like I'm sure like running has helped. Anything outside of that you think has helped there for you? I mean, during this journey?
Yes, definitely. Group fitness. I joined a cycle bar in 2001 and really fell in love with that. It's excellent cross training. I took a little bit of a break in 2022, but I joined again at the start of December, and I've been back at it. My instructor has already like shared her Peloton workouts and stuff with me, so I've gotten more and more connected with like the group fitness community. And then I've joined this organization. It's called Fitness Ambassadors.
Yeah.
And it's this Dallas based fitness organization. And they go to all different studios. They kind of foster just any type of fitness, wellness community. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like that group collaboration. I know we were talking about it before with like the group runs, but I think really for any like fitness activity, that can definitely be really helpful. I'm curious though, I know you mentioned like your first race was the half marathon. Why the half marathon for you to get things started?
Okay, so I had experience with fun 5Ks And I was like, I mean, I can walk 3.1 miles. Why not do a half? And I know that's not the smartest. And I don't usually advise people to just go from like fun running a 5K to just racing a half. But it was a challenge. And I had a year to prepare. And I was like, I think I can get to a good spot where I can run most of the half. And that's kind of what happened. And then I just slowly worked up to marathons. But yeah, it was a jump.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think that step from a 5K to a half, I mean, I've done it myself.
Yeah.
It's a big jump. And like when I work with a lot of beginner runners. I don't know how much you know about some of the work I do outside of like my content creation, but it's not my full-time job, but part of my way in which I create content is by giving runners like free personal running plans, because I actually used to coach middle school track for 2 years, high school track for a year. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people who like they want to get into half marathons and marathons after they just first started running. And like I think it's definitely doable for anyone who has the ability to run and is willing to put in consistent hard work. But I hear what you're saying as far as it being a lot. But you've at this point you've done, I think I was like looking at one of your TikToks earlier, what, like 17 half marathons or so?
Yeah, I can't even wrap my mind around that. And it's gotten to the point like today, my long run was 3.1 miles. And I was like, holy cow, like I've run that distance so many times in marathon training. And I don't even stop to realize that, holy cow, that is far. Like for anybody, that is far. And I never stop to kind of appreciate that my body did that.
Yeah. It's like it's such an interesting topic because like the perspective that comes with running, you like it's very typical, I think, for runners sometimes to take a step back and like look at what they're doing and then remember what you used to be able to do or the lack of what you were able to do compared to what you're able to do now and
Yes.
appreciate that. So I'm glad you're like taking those steps back because like it's easy to be hard on yourself with the sport, right?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I feel like runners are the worst perfectionists. And
Yeah.
our lives and running career basically revolve around that gun time and that chip time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. I mean, so you said you've done 17 halves. Are they all like in competitive races, or walk me through what that has looked like for you?
yeah. Okay, so the first few half marathons I did, I wanted to race them, and obviously my time started going down once I started doing that. And then I told myself every few half marathons, I'm gonna run for fun. I'm not gonna race it. I'm just gonna run for fun. So I've done that. Like I did my half marathon PR in January, and then I think I raced another half in April, and I really just fun ran ever since. And I'm doing Houston in January, so that'll be another race, and then I'm just gonna fun run for the next few months after that.
Nice. And I
Yeah.
think that the topic of fun running, that's something I'm very passionate about because I think anytime you do a race and you communicate that with other people, it's just a matter of time until someone that you're talking to, whether it's someone you work with who may never even run, or if you're a content creator like yourself and me, someone might interact with your page and they're expecting that you're going to be running at like a performance that you're improving from your previous races and setting different records for yourself. But I mean, I think running for fun, it's so important, even in the race setting. I think especially in the race setting, because when you're training for something more seriously, at least like you have like more of that exposure. What has motivated you though to run some of these races just for fun? Because I think sometimes some people might just think it's not even worth running a race if they're not going to go for a time.
So it's interesting you say that because I, I told myself I wasn't going to like race all these halves. But when I got to the start line, I was like getting into this race mentality. And I was like, this is why people are so nervous. This is why people underperform sometimes. It's like you put so much pressure on yourself to race everything. And like some of these halves, I went in fun running. I didn't have that pressure and I didn't feel nervous. And it's like, that's how you conquer any of those race day nerves, any of those expectations. And yes, it may seem like a waste of money and a waste of training, but it's not, because you're still getting in the miles. You can still count it towards your overall, half marathon or marathon count. And you may have a blast. Like, I fun ran the Dallas half a couple weeks ago, and the person I ran with, he ran off to take a shot, or he ran off to take donut holes, and it's just that creates a deeper love of running. Like, just jacking around sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely hear you there. And, I think like for me, I don't know how much you know about like my running journey, but like I've done 3 marathons so far. I'm shooting for, and I know you are too, shooting for the Boston Qualifier, sub 3 hour
Yes.
marathon. And we can talk about that here in a minute. But, and I have 2 upcoming marathons, and I just ran New York City back in November. And after that race, like mentally, physically, like I can tell I'm not in that mindset where I'm putting in the 50, 60 mile weeks that I was and feeling that like competitive urge. So my approach is like run these races for fun, get the medals, have fun, stop for a donut in the middle of the race, maybe bring a GoPro with me and have some fun creating content. And I think there's a lot of value to that. So, I'm glad we're on the same page with that. But, I want to talk about the competitive side too, right? Because I think that there is important parts to that for certain people. I don't think you have to do it, right? But I know for you, I noticed how like Boston Qualifier, like that's a goal for 2023 for you. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So what makes you passionate also about running for a time and being able to compete in Boston? What's the driver for that?
Most of it is just to say that I could do something hard.
Mhm.
Like, and I've done other hard things, but now that I've found something that brings me joy, something that I love to do every day, like I'm on a 780-day run streak,
Oh, wow.
and you can't hate running if you're running for 780 days, man.
Right.
So, but seriously, like running competitively, like, or even Boston too, like I want to run that marathon. Like, I've heard so many good things. I've seen people before me. I've heard stories of people going from couch to marathon to Boston. And I'm like, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah.
And I'm giving myself 10 months to slowly build. Like, I've met with my coach, and realistically, Boston should happen in 2025 for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Best of luck on that journey. I mean, it's not easy, especially our age bracket. I know you said you're 27, I'm 26, so like we're around
Okay.
the same age, and it's a hard, I think there's a lot of people that are in that pool, so that's why the time is so fast. But it's an amazing accomplishment to even, I think, be working towards that and make that mental decision to put mental and physical pressure on yourself. So I congratulate you for that. And I'll be rooting for you over the next, 10 months or so, or whenever you decide to attempt that, to hopefully be able to do that race in 2025 for you.
Thank you. You too. And I haven't announced it a lot on social media, but I did get into the Chicago Marathon for 2023. So,
Exciting.
yeah, and I did it back in 2021 and took 30, I went from a 450 marathon to a 419.
Wow.
And it was minimal training, which was baffling to me. But my body works better on flat courses. And Chicago is pancake flat.
It's
So,
reasonable.
yeah. Well, and I only have to shave off, well, I say only, but my PR right now is a 353. But I ran it when I was horribly injured. I had runner's knee. And yeah, it was bad. Like, my finish line photo, you can tell, like, I'm KT taped, I have my runner's knee brace on, and I'm like, am I crying like from pain or from the finish line? Like, what is it? So,
That's tough. Well, yeah, I mean, if you were dealing with that level of strain during your PR, I'm sure, you know, a PR will be coming, especially Chicago, a race that you've done well within the past. I did apply for Chicago myself. I didn't get in through the lottery, but I'm thinking maybe I'll do the charity route. I haven't fully decided, but I have some other races coming up, so taking it day by day with that. But how many, I know 17 halves, how many actual full marathons have you done?
I've done 4 fulls. And I DNF'd at CIM a couple weeks ago, and I am not upset at all. Like, I had a calf injury, and it was the right thing to do. So I've attempted 5, completed 4.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I did see your video
Mhm.
on the California International Marathon, how you ran like the first 8 and then you were dealing with that injury. You called your coach, right? And
Yep.
your coach was like, step off the course, it's not worth it.
And that surprised me because I messaged him before and I was like, "Hey, I'm hurting." And he's like, "Run a slow mile and then get back to it, or take a gel and get back to it." But he messaged me back so fast and goes, "Step off. Like, you don't run anymore." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And my coach has been training Olympic trials qualifiers for a little bit, and they had to pull off at the halfway point.
Wow.
So just a lot of DNFs happen. Like, you either had a fantastic race at CIM or you had an awful race.
Yeah. It was similar to that, similar in New York City. It was hot for the New York City Marathon, and a lot of people didn't finish. There's some injuries. It was kind of a crazy scene. So I mean, it can happen, especially the competitive juices are flowing and people. I mean, I know that course is like a course that a lot of people try to qualify for Boston for. So I'm sure a lot of people were really going in aggressive for that race. But I mean, I'm curious because, sorry about the experience. I know I'm glad to hear you're not upset about it, which I think like that's super important because it's not worth it to just let that emotion of a singular day that, you can replace moving forward with so many great days. But what allowed you to, because I feel like for me, like that would be really hard. I've never DNF from a marathon. What allowed you to rebound from that so easily?
So I've learned through running that you get humbled all the time. So don't go into running with an ego. Like, don't go into running thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna PR every race. Oh, I'm gonna be the fastest runner. Oh, everybody's gonna love me and want to be me." Like, that's not the reality. And I literally have no ego. Like, my one goal for racing is have fun and just learn from every single race. Like, I don't know. Those first 8 miles of CIM, what people don't realize is CIM is 22 miles of rolling hills. So
Mm.
if you're not hill trained, that race will humble you. And the last 4 miles, of course, are downhill, but you've got to make it through 22 miles of rolling hills. So I already knew that I wasn't hill trained enough. But what I did realize is my race pace was easy. Like, my heart rate was in the easy zone, and I was doing 7:45, 7:50s, and I was like, "Carolyn, slow down, like, slow down." So, but literally it was an injury, and I can't be this person that's like, "Oh, it's fine, I can run through an injury," because it's not like that. Like, if you run, you're gonna get more injured. So I've been humbled so much, and I'm learning to be a student of this sport.
That's smart for sure. I know you mentioned that the 780-day running streak, is that still going on, or was that a previous streak and then you took some time off after that injury?
It's still going on.
Oh, really?
Seriously, and people have been like, "You need to stop and you need to take some rest days." And I'm like, "Okay, well, my 13-minute mile slow run was a rest day." Like, it's like, I've seriously looked at my Garmin and I look at my body battery, and after those easy runs, my body battery will go up. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, so I do take my easy days really easy.
That's
So
smart. Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important. I mean, you can certainly recover from those easy days, and that's typically the advice I give someone when they get injured. It's like, I think just it depends on the injury, of course, but like fully getting away from running, if you have the ability to like still move, you're going to lose some fitness with it. Taking the time to just focus on like easy recovery runs, listen to your body and how it responds to that, and taking it run by run until you're back at 100% is really, I think, the most logical way to approach it. I had like a hamstring injury that I actually had from kickball. Believe it or not, with all the running I do, I was playing kickball and it happened months ago. And yeah, I mean, that was tough. I did take some days off though. So I got to ask you, like, what is the reason for the running streak? I'm sure you've got a pretty good answer for that.
Yeah, so it was my like old coach. I met him at the mile 25 of my first marathon.
Mhm.
And, we started running and training together. And he was like, hey, like, I think I want to start this run streak. Cause literally we had been running pretty much every day. And I was like, oh, I think I can do that. And then I would make it 100 days and then I would lose motivation. And then I'd start again and then I'd lose motivation. And finally I was like, I have to stick with this, and I did. And there's definitely been some hard days. Um, there's been I've never been too injured to run, but there's been some really slow mile days. There's been some 11:30 p.m. mile days. There's been some 12:01 a.m. mile days, but it's a part of who I am now.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, as far as the run streak goes, I mean, how long do you see it going? Like, do you have any plan of a cutoff, or is it just when you literally can't move?
When I can't move, and I'm part of a Run Streak Internationals page, and these people, there's one guy who's been running for like 50 years.
Oh my God.
And he is the sweetest guy. And it's just so whenever I have those hard days, I go to the Facebook page. My streak is registered in the world records, and I'm like the 4,000 long streak, which is like nowhere near some of these people, but it's just that community keeps me going. Like it's great to read stories about people who have reached their 1,000th day and how they like have been having a bad day, went on a 1 mile run and they're feeling better, they're feeling energized. So
That's awesome. And what's considered a run? Is there like a certain mileage that counts, I guess, with this community that you mentioned?
yes, and that's debated once a day on the Facebook page,
I bet.
but it is defined as both of your feet have to be off the ground at one time for at least a mile.
Okay.
And yeah, some people, you can run this little chunks throughout the entire day, but it has to happen in a 24-hour period. It can be literally anywhere. Like you can run, like people do apartment miles. Like some girl ran a marathon on her porch. People do crazy things, but your feet just have to be off the ground at the same time for a mile.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's something I'll jump into because for me, like I feel like I do need like those days of rest. But if it's just a mile instead of zero on a certain day, that's something that I think could be cool. Maybe I'll start doing in 2023. And I won't be able to catch up to you unless you slip one day. But I'll hopefully be part of that community. That'd be really fun.
One of us. One of us.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I do want to talk about too, I think what's really cool is that you have a coach, and it sounds like this coach has a lot of experience. I mean, I think you were saying that he's like coached some different Olympic qualifiers, right? Is that correct?
Yes, yes, he has.
Yeah. And so I'd be curious like how that all came about and want to hear about like some things you learned from all the coaching you've received.
Okay. So I actually met my coach at a running group. They're called the Pint Striders. They're the biggest running group, social running group in Dallas. Um, Met him in 2018, and he was coaching a couple of my college friends. And I was like, oh, like that'd be cool. Like what they do is cool. My friends were making progress. They were qualifying for Boston. And I went up to him just joking and I was like, hey, you should coach me sometime. And he was like, okay. And then we both got drunk at a party one time. And I don't drink anymore, but at this party, I drunkenly said, hey, coach me starting next month. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yep. And sure enough, he sent me my training plan, and he's been my coach since I believe it was like April 2020 is when he first sent me that training plan.
Wow.
So,
That's really cool. And yeah, I mean, what are some big takeaways over the last, so you said 2020, so it's been almost 3 years now, right? 2.5 years that you've been getting this coaching from, the same person. what are some of the most important lessons you could teach? Because there's a lot of beginner runners listening to the podcast, and I think, there's so many different perspectives, and I'd love to hear what you've learned.
Yeah. The biggest thing, and I actually met with him on Sunday to discuss my 2023 goals and the slow build up to Boston, and it's consistency. Like, if I were to tell any new runner, it is consistency. Like, yes, running is going to get hard. It will get mentally hard. It will get physically hard. You will hate it some days. But the runs you hate are the runs that build you. And the more you run, the better you will get. The slower you run, the faster you get. It's just those little things, but you have to show up and you have to get your runs done week after week.
I love that.
Yeah.
Such true and helpful advice. I mean, I think a lot of people struggle to see the, improvement, I guess, with running, as well as just like the quote unquote runner's high and like, any of the benefits they're looking for, mostly because of consistency. They'll do it consistently for 2 weeks and then they take a couple of days off their training and then they get back into it. And it's not, I think you can probably agree more than anyone. If you're not working with it consistently, you're gonna it's gonna make it more difficult for some of those benefits to actually trigger, right?
Yep. And I'm the most stubborn person on the planet. Like, I've been there. I wasn't very consistent at the end of 2022 and even during the CIM cycle, and it showed. And ever since then, like, I have followed pretty much every workout my coach has sent me, and I will continue to do it. And I told him, keep me accountable. Like, be harsh on me so that I can be better. Because Lord knows I can't do it myself. Like, I mean, I can be motivated, I can get myself out the door and stuff, but he's going to give me direction. He's going to give me the workouts, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'd be
Yeah.
curious too, and listen, I know just as much as anyone that with a training plan, it's not going to be the same every week, but when you are, I guess for your previous training series for that last marathon that you were doing, what would you say like the range of weekly mileage that you typically are doing? And I'd also be curious like the breakdown between how many of those days are like easy runs, speed workouts, perhaps your long runs. I'd love to hear about how that looks for you.
Yeah. So he capped me. I think my peak week was 55 miles.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of research that says you don't need to do 100 miles to see results. And this new idea of quality over quantity has started popping up. And I've seen runners break 3 hours on 35 miles a week. And I mean, my coach really, he's definitely like adapting and everything to this new research. So I always have 2 speed sessions. I'll have an interval on Tuesday, whether it's track or, repeats. And then Thursday is always tempo. It's always at half marathon pace or 10K pace. And then I've got my long run. And what my coach does is typically he'll have you do like 30 seconds slower than marathon pace. And then he'll throw in run 20 seconds faster than marathon pace or run at marathon pace. So you get used to the uncomfortableness. And then the rest are super, super easy days.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean it's really interesting to see that format, and I mean that's honestly like pretty similar to what my training looks like when I'm building up for a competitive race. So, I'm sure we have similar styles there. Now something I want to pivot a little bit actually and talk about your personal brand, because you obviously create content, really great content, and I want to first know like what led you to get onto TikTok and decide to start posting about running.
Okay, so I a lot of my life is on Facebook and Instagram, and a lot of my family and friends see all that content. And TikTok was the one place where I could go and I could be myself, and none of my family and friends could find it. And it just, I'm not like some weird person, but it's like you have this persona, like this, I guess, professional. I feel like on my Instagram and even on my Facebook, because I would see people on Facebook post cat photos and stuff. And I was like, I want people to respect my content. And TikTok, I felt like I could just be wild. Like if I wanted to, you know, film myself for 5 seconds on the best part of my run, the worst part of my run, I could do it. And I really started to take notes from a lot of the Run Talk community. And I was like, okay, um, my content is different and my ideas are a little bit different and I can add something. And so I did. And I joined a Facebook group for TikTok creators and kind of bounce ideas off them. But most of my content is original. And I don't, if I see another Run Talk person post a TikTok using the same sound, I try to like stray away to kind of give them the credit. And I just think of another video or I'll share a personal story. But man, my friends and family found my gosh darn TikTok. Like, what do I do?
Once they join, they'll like get suggestions based on someone who's in their contacts. So
Yeah.
I get that a lot with my work people. I don't really try to hide it, but like I'm not also telling people about it all the
Yeah.
time. And yeah, it's always interesting when people discover that and you don't expect them to.
No, and I was the weird kid in high school, like weird. And I'm like, these people only know me as the kid that wore Crocs to school or like mismatched socks and like sat on the bench in basketball. Like I was, I mean, I was a drama geek, everything. Like I had my hand in everything. And like now that like I have the platform I have on TikTok, I'm like, oh, what are they thinking now? I mean, I'm not that weirdo sitting on a bench in basketball, like singing in the spring musical. Like this is who I am now. Like this is my passion. This is my niche. And I never know what people think.
hmm Yeah, and I mean on that note, I think there's a lot of people who share a passion, like we have for running, or it could be running, it might be something else, but share the fact that they're passionate about something, and they're seeing all these creators and how popular and I guess more respected it is to create your own personal brand. But at the same time, I think there's people out there who are really creative and just aren't pursuing it because of concerns of what other people are going to think. Personally, for me, like I don't really get a lot of like negativity around my brand, and even if I did, like it wouldn't bother me. But I think for some people it could, or some people concerned about that more than anything. I think a lot of it is pressure that people put on themselves. So I don't know if that's something you think about at all, but clearly it doesn't bother you if it does, if that's a thing, because you're posting a lot, which is great. But what advice would you have for someone who might want to create their own brand and they're hesitant to because of the thoughts of other people?
Forget what other people think because, like I never know what people are going to think. And when I first started posting videos, I would get like very minimal views because I had a small following. And I could literally just play around with what worked and what didn't work. And now that I have the following I have, it's like, oh, I already have a community of people that love me. Like when I shared my DNF, I didn't think, oh man, people are going to think I'm a failure. Like I have to like admit that, like I'm not this awesome athlete. And it's like, people are going to love you if you are you. Like, I don't think I've had to like act or like be somebody that I'm not on any of my TikToks. And that's what people need. People need real, they need vulnerable, they need raw. Just you, you can't gatekeep. You can't act holier than thou. It's not something that people hold on to and they want to be around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, on a on the same topic of creation though, I mean, and I appreciate that answer so much. Do you have any like big goals for the page, or is this just a way for you to like connect with your passion and connect with other people who share that passion?
I definitely like to grow, but not in the, oh, I want to be famous way. It's no, I want to get somebody new to run, or I want to answer beginners questions because I literally navigated the running world by myself. When I started running, like everybody was qualifying for Boston, and it may have been the running group that I had joined, but I had to do research. I had to do trial and error. And if I can eliminate that for some people, like that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and so for someone who's listening right now who has never, committed to running,
yeah.
what would you say to like inspire someone to really like give running a fighting chance into their life?
I would say run on a bad day. And I know that sounds weird, but if you run on a bad day, you're going to be out there, you're going to be getting endorphins for sure. And who knows, you may channel that bad energy into, I don't know, a mile, which is fantastic. Some days I'll run and I'm real mad at the world, and some days I'm having the best day. But you connect when you have so much energy. I feel like whether it's bad, good, but run on a bad day. Like really go out there when you're so vulnerable, go connect with running, and then build on that.
Yeah.
Then run on a good day. Like run when you're just blah. Like just you got to start somewhere, and just that's what I'd say. And it's not conventional, but it's what worked.
It's not. I was going to say that's a unique answer, but it's actually, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think there are days where, whether it's work or personal life, whatever it is, there's going to be shitty days, right? And it is what it is. That's part of this game of life that we all, enjoy to play. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But I noticed that, for me, when I go and I run on those days that suck, it can really easily make those bad days into an okay day, which I think is a win, or even a good day. Or maybe it stays a bad day, but at least I ran, and at least, I'm making progress on a goal. And so I think that's really good advice, and I really appreciate you sharing that. One thing I do want to ask, because what really has impressed me about this conversation, Carolyn, I just feel like for you, like you're very honest about like your strengths and weaknesses. But I think one of your biggest strengths that I've quickly noticed is the fact that you're just very like driven and motivated for a lot of like healthy aspects of life, whether it's mental health, whether it's your running goals, whether it's helping others, whether it's creativity. I think that basket of so many different things that you're working towards is really going to like lead you to a really happy and fulfilled life. But like, what has motivated you to really dive into those different passions and work towards just a great healthy life? Are there like people who have motivated you? Is it just research you've done online? Like, is this something that just comes to you naturally? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. Um, so I've always kind of been this motivated person. Like I've always had big goals, which not not everybody possesses. Sometimes it's external motivation that they need. But I was like, well, what can't I do? Like I feel like everybody starts out as average.
Mhm.
The people that don't do anything that like to increase that stay average. The people that get out of their comfort zone will be elevated. And I want to keep doing big things. Like not to impress people, but it's so cool to just be like, oh yeah, I've done 17 marathon or like half marathons, and be like, oh, what? So, I did that. So I think it's just striving to be the best version of myself. Um, and it's been really cool. Like the more I've run, the more races that I've run, I find running buddies, and then they add on to the motivation. And like today, I had my 13.1 mile run. And somebody was like, hi, can I join you for like your last 6 miles? And I was like, yes, because that's when it's hard. So did 7.1 by myself. And then this sweet friend came and ran the last few miles with me. So
That's terrific.
yeah.
I mean, I think what you said about just striving to be the best version of yourself, that's something that I think a lot of people think of, but they don't actually take action on. But I truly think that you are taking all those actions, which is just really inspiring for me, and I appreciate that. Um, but yeah, I mean, that from my end, those are really all the questions that, I had. Before we tell people where to find you, Carolyn, I mean, is there any like final thoughts that you wanted to bring up? Anything, you wanted to share with the community in general, whether it's about running or just anything about your brand? More than happy to give you an opportunity to speak about really anything before we share your page.
Let's see. So yeah, I'm a big advocate on mental health. So I would tell people, like, before you just go out and lace up shoes, like, definitely work on anything mentally that's going on. Because running isn't easy. Running isn't a cure-all. I'm on medication, and I'm a big advocate for that. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. So get that taken care of. Reach out to people if you need it. And that's one of the things that I do. I'm like an open book. I'm like, here, want to know my worst moments, my best moments? I got you. So definitely reach out. And then in the running aspect, do strength training, y'all. Pick up a weight. Like, I don't know, do some calf raises. Just take care of yourself, because if you run a lot and you don't strength train, you're gonna get injured. Like, it's happened to me before, and it's terrible. So that's all I would say concerning life and running.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do a whole nother episode and talk about the benefits of strength training.
Yeah.
It's great that you bring that up because yeah, I agree so much with that. I think it's so great to have strength training. I think, physically, right, to prevent injuries, but I think it's also good to like switch up your fitness too. So thanks for sharing all that value.
Yeah.
But yeah, Carolyn, where can people find you? I want to make sure that from this episode, as many people who, enjoyed what they listened to have the opportunity to easily find you on TikTok.
Yes. So on TikTok, I'm at Carolyn Macduff. And then Instagram is the same. I try to keep it pretty easy for everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, everyone, please follow Carolyn. She's awesome, and I'm sure there's going to be so much. There has been a lot of great content, right? But there's going to be so much more that you come out with. So I'm excited to be a loyal follower and to continue watching all your stuff, as well as I would consider you a friend now, and let's stay connected. If there's anything you need in the future from me, anything I could provide, let me know. It's really was an honor to have you on and spend close to an hour here tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything. Just I feel like I was talking to somebody that I've known for a while, which is always great. So
Awesome. That's the goal. That's the goal. Well, thank you everyone again for listening to this episode of the Run Breiter podcast. Don't forget to run brighter and have a good one.